Thank you all for being here. My name is AdaPia. I am a strategic advisor and investor relations strategist. I have had a hand in launching the real estate crowdfunding industry, so about a decade ago. So I've been in the real estate innovation space for quite a while, raising capital. I've indirectly or directly facilitated or raised close to $500 million. And I'm very honored to talk about innovation and real estate today. So first I'm gonna start my timer because I'm very organized. All right, so this panel is the future of innovation and investing in real estate. And we have Gabe Barr, CTO and board member of DealEstate, Tony Lopes, CEO of Dirty Boots Capital. We have Ajay Kaushal, VC of JLL Spark Global Ventures, and Andrew McDonald, who is many things. I have him down here as the partner of Legacy Investment Vehicles. So one of the things today that I've really noticed is, you know, a lot of us, including those of us who are in the real estate industry, might think it's an old, stodgy industry, but I'm pretty sure that after today, nobody will ever think that again. There's so much innovation, even from those who are stalwarts that have been doing this for a long time, and I'm really impressed that they show up and they're really digging into innovation, which is clearly why they're still around. So one of the things for me when I think about this is we want to talk about where the biggest opportunities are, thinking about it as like skating to where the puck will be. And so we're going to start from a macro innovations trend. So Ajay, can you describe today's major macro innovation trends affecting the real estate sector, and how are these trends reshaping investment strategies?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot to unpack there, and I want to make sure I give these folks a chance to speak too. I think when you look at real estate as an asset class, you think, well, this is multiple trillions of dollars. It's massive. You know, technological innovation in this space should be really easy to underwrite because it's such a huge space. I think the reality is when you actually take each segment of real estate, they're actually really like sub-verticals within real estate that make up this whole overall pie. So when you think about overarching areas of innovation, we can talk about the way that AI is changing design in the pre-construction process, right? We can talk about how there's innovation being done at an operational level to make it easier for you to not only lease multifamily buildings but to also operate them from a maintenance standpoint. We can talk about the whole host of retrofitting technologies that are currently being tested by a lot of folks that are trying to do what John Molina is doing with Fairmont, right? Where they're using an old building but taking new innovation, putting that on top, and completely changing the purpose of that. So there's a whole host of things, but for me, what I'm most enamored by is this. The entire industry is coming to terms with the data it actually sits on. And it's a little bit different from generative AI. I think generative AI has a very probabilistic air to it, where I think somebody made the analogy around, if you're talking about Little Red Riding Hood, you could say duh, and then the next word might be grandma or whatever else. That's a probabilistic kind of determination. In real estate, we don't have clean data. We don't have things that are making it easy for us to analyze where we've been and, more importantly, draft where we should go. But that's changing, right? We're seeing a ton of innovation in bringing this data that is currently unstructured, right? So I work for JLL. We do a ton of brokerage. We have a bunch of leases. They're all PDF documents that were scanned by an intern. Some have thumbprints on them. They're illegible. But AI is helping make that data actionable. We're creating large databases out of this data and developing our own data set that helps guide our professionals to where there's opportunity. Similarly, those models are applicable across your data sets as well. So to me, it's just the equipping of this entire industry with the data that you actually sit on to help guide that future. That to me is probably the most interesting.
Amazing, thank you. And along those lines, I'm gonna hand it over to Tony first, and then Gabe. So Tony, how are specific technologies like real estate tokenization, which you're very involved in, how are those transforming the real estate investment landscape?
Sure. So real estate tokenization, even though it may not be here today at the fullest, it's coming. I was just speaking to Andy. He's a young developer. I don't know if he's out there. Oh, there he is, young developer. And we were having the conversation about, man, if I was a young person walking into this conference center and I heard all the negative things being said about real estate, I wouldn't be able to run out of here fast enough. So there's a point being, there's so much gudge in the real estate transaction. So if we can remove that, right? And I know there's a lot of obstacles. What we need in the room right now are not the 10 reasons why it can't be done. We need the one reason why it can be done, and we need to collectively work towards that. So real estate tokenization does 4 things for us. It increases transparency, right? So on that token, you can put the financials of that property. You can put who holds the insurance binder and put some insurance information. The property manager can put some information onto that token. So the transparency increases. And so with greater transparency on that token, you also get, the second thing, less friction in these deals, in the transferring of properties, and in the transfer of the tokens themselves. Because now, if you want to change insurance companies, your insurance company, you can grant them access to look at this token, to see the financials, to see the deal, to be able to get maybe better insurance quotes. And due to smart contracts sitting on the blockchain, these things will happen much more easily in a frictionless way. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, which I think has already come up today, I'll repeat, is having real estate tokenized increases accessibility. It democratizes real estate to a level we haven't ever seen. I look at it and I say, think back, maybe 100, 150 years ago, if you were trying to trade stocks, right? And there was no real, stock market accessibility. You had to go someplace. You physically had to, probably jump on your horse, ride to that location, meet with the specific person, make that transaction. They'd print you out a stock certificate. Wow. How gudgy is that just to buy stock? But look at it today. Look how easy it is. We can go on our phone right now. If you have an Ameritrade account, if you have a Charles Schwab account, you can buy stock in the morning and sell it in the afternoon. You never get a stock certificate. It's super easy. And so accessibility to that type of transaction is going to be one of the things real estate tokenization gives us. And then the fourth thing is liquidity, which is so important, I think, to everybody in the room. And so again, think of it like a company XYZ that is on the stock market, listed on the New York Stock Exchange, but they want to invest more in terms of R&D or market penetration, but they need capital to do that. So what do? They could go to their local bank and get a loan, but what many of them do, they issue more stock, right, to be able to raise that capital. And with tokenization for real estate, we can do the same thing, right? We can issue another 100 tokens to be able to raise that capital to do the value add or the work we need to do. So tokenization gives us those 4 things. Thank you.
No, that's amazing. Thank you. I love the comparison and the contrast to the stock market because it's very relatable for everybody. So Gabe, this question is also for you. How are specific technologies like machine learning and AI, which we've spoken a lot about, and you use it in a very specific way, how are those transforming the real estate investment landscape?
Right. I think the machine learning and AI is here to stay. We're seeing the evolution on a daily basis, and what contemplating is how this is going to be, what's it going to be the application, how are we going to apply it. And we took a different approach to it. And actually, it's got to do with some of the tokenization side of it. But we will look at the investor side. Why a public market? When you go to public market, you can choose different stocks and you build a diversified portfolio base, and you use AI and machine learning for risk hedgement and other variables. When it comes to private equity, it's almost not there. It's almost unheard of. You go and you decide to invest in a specific property, value-add property, let's say in Austin, Texas, and that's a singular investment vehicle. While at the same time, you have other vehicles that you might have able to invest. But how do you weight? How do you really put in the type of investment into different properties? So we took a different approach. We kind of decided to build the first private equity diversification and asset allocation machine learning, where we identified investable assets, and with the same classes like C and B, value add, all same characteristic, and ask the investor a different set of questions that will determine his risk tolerance and investment horizon, and based on that, determine what will be the right asset allocation for him to invest. Right now, we're buying a property in Mass, we're buying for 60 mil, we're buying another property in Georgia, and we're buying a property in Dallas. When we go to our investors, say, okay, they all want to participate in all the deals, at what ratio? So when we throw that risk tolerance into that model, the algorithm will pull out the result, says, okay, put 20% here, 40% there, 60% here, and here is why. Why is because it's very individual to you. So we create a customized fund, and the customization part of it enables the investors to kind of pick and choose. That goes into tokenization as well, because when you have a tokenization, you have these different equity models, and you bring investors, whether it's going to be crowdfunding or whether it's going to be accredited investors or institutionals for that matter. How would you distinguish which one you're going to invest and how much? So you need to really look at it from a different angle. Everybody, we talked about investor AI about today throughout the entire day, and there was a lot of application was on the B2B side. How can we help invest? How can we help developers? How can we help buyers? But investors are bringing the capital. The equity side was almost neglected. So it's very similar. It's very acknowledgeable in the public market. When private equity, it's not there, and that's what we're trying to disrupt here.
Yeah, and I've seen you demoed it for me, and it's really remarkable. And I asked him, I said, "Are you white labeling this?" And he said, "No." This is just for my fun. But I mean, and we're here because there are a lot of investors in the room, and there are a lot of families in the room. And so I'm actually gonna jump to Andrew with this question, because a lot of what we've been hearing about today is sustainability, and that is impact. And there are paradigm shifts through technology, and then there are paradigm shifts in how investors are allocating their capital. And what I'm seeing is a lot of family offices stepping in to the void that was left by traditional capital markets, especially over the past couple of years. And I really think it's phenomenal, the work that family offices are doing. So Andrew, how are the priorities of the younger generation, like next-gen family offices, and I know you've done some work there, how are those driving the shifts in real estate investment, and particularly in the context of impact investing?
All right, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, guys. Honored. To answer that question, so whenever I hear the word impact investing, I've had many conversations about this. Those two words are interesting together because they're really more in conflict than they are a synergy. I love the word impact investing, but it's a challenge because impact suggests that you're really committed to actually making a difference, almost to the degree of wishing you could just be charitable and philanthropic. And then just investments, that's a disciplined decision for returns and security and maximizing that opportunity monetarily. So putting them together is actually a really difficult thing to do. People talk about it. It's a great thing to aspire to. But one of the things that I've focused on in real estate is taking a look at what the next generation is bringing to the game. And it's going to radically change everything. We're already seeing it with the need for affordable workforce housing, micro units, and the different priorities and values that the next generation have, requiring us in the position that we're in, and even the generation above us, to make some adjustments. I'll give you one example. If you look at hospitality right now, the JW Marriott model, many would say that, this is changing rapidly. And while I love it, take my wife and kids to that, my 24-year-old stepson and my 6-year-old and 9-year-old children will see things differently. And we've seen the statistics on it. They're basically lighter on their feet, not necessarily worried too much about home ownership, wanting more experiences and affordability. And so that's why you'll see examples of the hostel model in Europe that has been around forever. And you think of a hostel, like, I don't want to stay at a hostel, it's dirty or whatever. There are nice hostels, and there are the super cheap, hostels that I just mentioned. But in the United States, there's a massive opportunity, and people are doing it more than ever quietly now. They're finding all of the destination location metropolitan areas along the railway, finding a brownstone building they can get for a deal. They're converting it affordably, and then they're turning it into a modern hostel concept. So imagine, branded F&B with some famous chef, super cool restaurants, a WeWork type of setup where people can meet and exchange value, connect, and then also the tours and excursions. And what that's doing for the investor is it's getting them out of the 20 to 25% return they would normally expect, generally speaking, with a boutique hotel, luxury hotel investment, and into a 40% return with a model like that, because you don't have to spend money on the furniture package and whatnot. And so we're seeing new product and need come out like that, because it's just where things are headed and fast. And so my biggest worry is that there's a good and bad approach to everything, is that as we approach affordability, workforce, and hospitality adjustments, that they're amenitized, that there is a wellness overlay, like the Delos well building standard, that makes sure that we're optimizing space, light, energy, and creating an environment for people to thrive. And I think there's a lot of micro unit approaches that are real, or build to rent approaches, which really don't take into account that, but are heavy on the fact that they're pretty solid returns, and I don't want to pass it on to our kids. So
I really appreciate that. A couple things that come to mind, and I would love everybody to jump in on this, is one, we heard from the builders saying like that's honorable for you to be building. I mean, and how amazing to create a space for somebody to live and thrive and work. And impact is also the impact it has on our health, mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, and real estate and innovation in real estate can provide all of that. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing for us to all remember, because while talk about all this innovation and like you're investing in it and you're creating it, it also has to hit home in a way that's meaningful, which we were talking about backstage.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think kind of what our conversation backstage was lending to was, I think real estate does a really awful job of storytelling, right? I think we do a really awful job of educating younger people as to what real estate is. The first time I ever took a real estate class was 4 years ago in business school. That should not be the case, right? We teach kids in middle school how to bake a cake in home economics. Why? One, that's not home economics, but why aren't we teaching kids earlier what real estate's about? Why aren't we feeding that interest into them at an earlier point where they want to see what exists on Zillow, they want to see what's on Crexy, they want to see what they could potentially put money to work in, or design a home, right? There's so many ways for them to roll up their sleeves in a creative way and feel a part of this overall industry. We've just, I don't know if it's purposeful or not, but it feels like we've blocked out a good amount of the population, and we still don't educate the next wave of folks coming in. I also think we have that problem when people hit the workforce. We heard a lot from builders today, and I think there's a lot of conscious thought going into the crop of the future. But how many of these builders are really reaching out into the newly graduated class and involving them in the designing process? How are they talking to them about what do you want your multifamily unit to be? I just saw a multifamily property that broke ground. It was a 100-unit complex, right? Not broke ground, it just opened. And I walked in, and it felt like it was designed for the early 2000s, right? Like dark hardwood floors, black granite countertop, and you could tell the folks that designed that never left an Excel model. And I think that's what you really need to do in this world, right? Everybody's changing the way that they want to operate. I think the pandemic has changed a lot, but the way that we live and occupy spaces, you have to reach out to the population to help define that. And I think the best companies are bringing that innovation in as soon as they graduate and trying to involve them in these higher level decisions, because it's going to lead to the best outcomes.
Absolutely. If I may, I'd like to just add to that. So we're always looking to create win-win situations. We don't care if it's an owner or a renter, right? We don't really distinguish or see one class as better or worse than the other. But one of the things we're doing with AI is we are looking to go beyond just looking at rents to go ahead and increase value in our property, right? Rent is great, we all understand the value there, but if you can wrap AI around it in terms of property management, right? And so like in our properties, when somebody calls and says, hey, my stove isn't working, we say, okay, there's an AI interface behind the scenes that says, okay, well, do you have electric power to that appliance? And they'll reply back, yes. Okay, so it takes them through this if-then type situation. And as they walk through that, the tenants walking through that, they're diagnosing the problem themselves. And then once we get to the end of that chain, we determine if we have to send out, an appliance repairman, or if we have to send out a plumber, if it's a gas line problem, And so we get that data. And so from there, if the tenant is able to solve it on their own, great. It just saved us a boatload of money, right? Using that AI. Okay, and then from the opposite end of it, if the power has been shut off or the gas has been shut off, and they say, well, we ran through this and it's still not working, but then we get there, we send out one of our crew to go there and take a look at it, and it's actually the tenant's fault because they didn't pay the electric bill or the gas bill and it's been shut off. Now we have a documented process we can go back and charge back to that tenant. Not that we like to do that, but streamlining things like this property management example that I just gave you, now that's value to the next property owner that we sell this to. We're not just basing value on the rents themselves. We're basing it on, hey, we're selling it with property management already in place. Tenants love it because they run through this process themselves on a Saturday when they call, and they get their appliance turned back on lickety-split, right? So they love it from that perspective. We love it because it's very cost efficient for us. So it's a win-win situation. And there's different circumstances we're looking at to create value beyond rent for properties using AI and ML.
All right, I just want to piggyback on that. I mean, this is the idea with the basically Gen AI that you mentioned. Actually, kind of cool. We looked at it from what the tenants are looking for is really building a community. Is looking at this place that they live in and call them a home. And how would, since we're in the multifamily space, and especially in the value add where you're looking B2C, so there's a certain level of tenants that, how you can create this enhancement that they can feel really this is the place to live in. So we build an app that enables them to kind of communicate between themselves and have a marketplace where they can actually sell and rent appliances between themselves within the property, only within the property, or ask for a play date, invite people for play date or create clubs. But it also has a component for the property management to really look at from an AI perspective, look at the profile of the tenants and either offer them the services that really will benefit them throughout their space and throughout the time they live there. So it's an actual app that we developed that's already in place. So we're really looking at it from a holistic point of view. In one end, we have the investors. The other is really understanding the tenants. And one of our GPs has really said it really, really well. Says we want a seat at the table. We want to make sure that we're able to help the tenants really enjoy the time they're there. So we're able to reduce the turnover, we're able to increase income, unrentable income, and creating this entire facility altogether using AI. So, I mean, I will take your idea and integrate that into my app right now. So, I like that.
It's really amazing, because what we're hearing to some degree is the application of innovation and technology across the entire real estate life cycle. And I know you're investing in design, like we have pre-construction, construction, leasing, operation, management, renovation, repositioning, and disposal. So it's across the spectrum, and we don't have time to talk about all of that on this panel. But with the 5 minutes that we do have left, what I would love to do is open it up to the panel. And if you could share your vision for the future of innovation through the lens of investing, with a 10 to 15 year look. Because a lot of families in the room that are our investors here, they are looking very long term. It's not private equity, right? Like, they're very long term. So what's a very long term view for you? And we'll start with Andrew.
Okay. Well, you know, again, it's a personal thing to a degree in terms of where you want to put your money. For me, I'm the type that if I'm innovating and pushing myself to that ideal in my own investments, I'm finding things that I enjoy that are secure and make money and have meaning and purpose. It's all that. And so when I look 10 to 15 years out, I think AI is dramatically changing things. And to your point, Ajay, it's critical that we take our kids to work, and as they're basically jumping into AI before they've finished their foundation, that they actually don't turn themselves over to AI before they have the things that came before AI have to get to them as well. So innovation is pretty simple in regards to education and example and passing it on to the next generation. But you know, I'm focused in a big way on being, well, two things. I have a company that's been around for 26 years. We teach real estate investments education, and have done almost $1 billion on stages with subject matter experts, teaching people and creating an army of mentors, as we say, that can go ahead and bring these freemium model into a paid subscription or a membership or a mentorship, and they can learn about all these things. And I'm pushing that as big as humanly possible, because it's necessary. We need a full spectrum of educational pathways that are efficient, affordable, effective, accessible for this next generation, because they want direct to whatever pathway they're trying to learn. The general ed thing in universities is changing. We do online accredited degree completion as well. But back to real estate, I just want to make sure that everyone's focused on this opportunity in efficiency living and making sure that it's properly amenitized, and that you look to things like Delos. For all of you that don't know, Delos created the Well Building Certificate and Well Building Standard. These are fundamental checkpoints that you can basically compare against projects that will produce a decent product, but may not stand the test of time in terms of actually the build quality, the efficiency, and longevity. But the actual reoccurring, or the stability in terms of the tenant staying around instead of having all this turnover. And because there's gonna be a lot of efficiency building coming out right now, and we need to do it right. That's like my absolute passion. And we need people to get behind it and make sure that that's happening. So I'm happy to talk to anyone about that, because we have 15,000 units that we're actually responsible to build. And I partnered, I'll finish here, just to give you an example, with a 20-year friend of my wife's, who's the most accomplished master planner of net zero communities in modern history. $3.8 trillion in net zero master planning, all currently under construction. And all the progressive technologies and solutions and efficiencies that could have ever been pioneered, that exist today, are in his hands. And that global resource of the star architects, civil engineers, designers, developers, and tech giants. But we need to get those applied in different regions in the world that are really lacking. So the other developers that follow will have to live up to that standard, and we'll also have a blueprint for how to simply make the adjustment.
Thank you. That's great. Wonderful. So we have a couple minutes left. So your 10 to
I'll do it
15 year
quick.
vision.
I'll do it quick. The future looks bright. The use of LLM and ML is really where it's going to be an application for almost everything that we do. I think we definitely need to utilize it in the right manner. And beside that, I think it's going to be, for investment purposes, it's definitely going to be tremendous opportunities.
Thank you.
Real quick, I'll offer a perspective.
Yeah.
Tesla was started in 2003, 20 years ago. Look how far they've come in 20 years. So, picture AI, ML, real estate tokenization, picture that in 20 years. I bring that perspective forward from the perspective of, I'm sure many of you already have some form of AI in place. If you don't, hopefully we're encouraging you and kind of sharing the path of the future. AI is required in terms of your real estate deals, your property management, cultivating not only tenants but also investors. And that's great if you have it. Think about machine learning. If you don't have it in place, I would encourage you to get familiar. Maybe somebody on your staff, name them like your technology czar, to go out and find that technology or create that technology. And the same thing with the blockchain, learning how the blockchain works and how you can leverage it, because this technology isn't going to stand still. It's coming at us pretty quick.
All right, so my 10-minute speech on, no, just kidding. No, honestly, look, I think the biggest thing you need to keep, I think, front of mind if you have capital you want to put to work is have a decent enough time horizon. All right, in the past 15 years, we've been through what feels like a dozen market cycles, right? And like, whoa, doom and gloom, and then sunny optimism that goes away in a year. It's always going to change. And at the core of it, we tell our portfolio companies this all the time. Value is different from valuation, right? And if you continue to wait to time the market for, hey, the dip's about to happen, I'm going to come in, you're losing the entire point. I think the reality is each of you have different lenses, different vantage points, different opportunities that avail themselves to you. Make sure you socialize those opportunities with other people that are outside of your immediate circles and see if there's any blind spots, right? Ultimately, you want to invest in something that you truly believe in, and I can't tell you to invest in what I believe in, right? It's not gonna resonate with you. Just make sure that when you do choose to commit that capital, you're there for the long haul, right? And keep a long-term time horizon, and don't be afraid to double down in your winners and reallocate capital away from what isn't working. Just keep at it, I would say. Don't be a visitor in investing. It doesn't treat visitors well.
Amazing. Well, it's pretty certain that we don't know what anything will actually look like in 20 years other than it will be different and it will be evolved. And thank you, all of you, for your wisdom, for your insights, and for being here today with everyone. Thank you so much.